Hello, I'm Kevin Zettel, a technical marketing engineer here at Infoblox. Today we're going to talk about ActiveTrust Cloud, the security surrounding it, and why you would want it. And at the end of this video, hopefully you have a better understanding of what ActiveTrust Cloud and more details on how it works. So ActiveTrust Cloud protects you at the DNS level. And we're going to talk about the security part first, and then we'll move more onto ActiveTrust Cloud itself. Why is this so important for protecting your DNS? Well, it provides a lot of information to your network and provides other people, if they're to grab that information, what's going on. And really, it allows them to steal information that's going through the network. So, for example, you can query out and you can pick up viruses by drive-by attacks quite easily, and you want to prevent things like that. Or you can get exfiltrated through the DNS, and these are things that you want to try to prevent. If some malware gets into your system, which eventually it will, you want to stop it from exfiltrating that data through the DNS, and that's an important thing to stop. I believe more than 90% of all malware actually uses the DNS to transfer its data or get information out through the DNS. So it's an important security point. So here's our architectural overview of what we offer and provide with ActiveTrust Cloud. We have pretty much every approach possible. We have it in the cloud, on-premise, and we have a hybrid approach to mix on-prem and in the cloud together. And that's a really important thing for a lot of security teams today, is that hybrid approach. And that allows you to really control your internal structure and really double check it with the cloud. And there's a couple of benefits with a cloud solution, right? You're not limited by memory or CPU, right? There's only so much you can pack into a box, and you're limited by that. But in the cloud, we don't have that limit, so we're able to do a little bit more, right? And another thing with the cloud solution here is a lot of companies now have remote mobile users moving around all over the place, and they can't be on the internal network at all times. When you need to protect those users and those assets, especially when they're coming back onto the network and off regularly, the hybrid approach with the cloud solution allows you to send those queries to the cloud and protect those users who are remote. Another thing to take note of is we're not claiming to be like a SIEM, a vulnerability management scanner, or a NAC, and we're not going to be able to offer you that enterprise level security around those features. So what we do is we give you the ability to push our data to them so that they can use it and give you that enterprise level security that you're going to need. So malware uses DNS at several different stages, and that's to penetrate your network, infect your network, and subsequently with CNC callback, they'll be inside your network literally. And then they'll start exfiltrating data, and everything goes downhill from there. So for protecting yourself against malware and APT, Infoblox offers the DNS firewall. And this is where we switch from the security side of things to what we offer in our product line. So this can be deployed both on your appliance and in the cloud, or a hybrid approach of using both the on-prem and cloud solutions. Again, I'm just supporting the idea that hybrid approach is the most secure. So for example, when an affected device on the network tries to communicate to its command and control using DNS, the device sends the information through the DNS, the firewall, in other words, which will compare the destination and stop it before it can ever get out. DNS firewall can also report the malicious activity. It can look at who's acting strange and remediate the issue before one can even occur. So these firewalls aren't just protected by us, which is really good all in itself, but we also have a whole host of partners like FireEye and Serval and many more who have great reputations in this field. So you have infected clients somewhere on your network at some point, and they're exfiltrating data out, whether that's social security numbers, or in the example here, credit card data, confidential data that we don't want to be sent out to the public or for anyone else to see. And data you need to protect. We're protecting you at the DNS level with a firewall that stops all traffic from going out. That might be malicious. We're recording that, and now you have it to be able to go out and actually remediate that issue. But let's say you want to collect more information than that. How are you going to do that? The really simple answer to this question of what you're going to do with the information once you have it is to go through it manually, sift through the data, assign workers to it. In essence, you're just wasting a lot of time. because there's much faster and quicker and efficient ways to use this data. And there's already third-party software out there to sift through the data automatically for you and remediate the issue without you having to lift a finger. Infoblox realizes this, and our ActiveTrust Cloud solution answers this issue with a really simple approach. So Infoblox has a security ecosystem license that allows you to take these events and hand them off to third-party vendors like your SIEM, Splunk, and QRadar, McAfee ESM, your vulnerability management scanners like Rapid7 and Qualys. And what they can do with that data is remediate the issue automatically for you, such as blocking the user from having access to certain parts of your software, warn you that something has occurred, start scanning an asset, and really this allows you to be much more efficient about your process in controlling your network. So Infoblox protects your data from malware, mitigates the issues with DNS Firewall, Threat Insight. We streamline the security operations with Tide, and with this Tide we're able to use third-party vendor systems with it. We have a rapid threat investigation with Dossier to key in and dig into the issues or what's happening. And we have an ecosystem to push it out to third-party systems to have the enterprise protection on their end. So to reduce confusion, we're going to go through all the solutions that we provide to you in one package here so that you understand what's going on as a whole. Start with the DNS Firewall, which we've talked quite a bit about already. And it's just to stop CNC communication and malware at the source before it can go through the DNS. And we're just looking for these indicators of compromise being searched for. We're going to stop it right away before they have any chance to get out. So our threat insight is a little bit more sophisticated than our DNS firewall. It protects you in sort of the same way, but we're actually looking for data that might not already be in the firewall. And these day zero attacks that we're trying to protect you from, or DGA attacks, fast flux attacks, stuff like that, and really to stop data exfiltration from occurring on your network. So next here is our Tide data itself, our threat intelligence data. And we do a few things to make sure that it's key on, like timely. We ensure that the data is most current and delivered when required. It's reliable. We've had 10 plus years experience refining and publishing the threat indicators daily. We make sure it's accurate. We've had a historic rate of less than 0.01% false positive. Contextual, why it's the threat and the related threat indicators to it. And then also easy to use. We have multiple output formats. This is JSON, CSV, and RPZ, and many more. Next is the dossier. It's a single central view to view multiple data sources all in one spot. Infoblox dossier makes it easy and quick to investigate threats. And this helps save time and money and resources. And you gain context over everything because Infoblox Threat Indicator Lookup Tool from Infoblox Dossier is an advanced research tool to understand the types of threats happening on your network. Finally, we have our security ecosystem, which takes the threats that we're finding and handing them off to third-party vendors, things that we're not claiming to be by any means, such as your SIEMs, your vulnerability management scanners, your next-gen firewalls. We're not that, but we know you need the enterprise security solutions behind those still. And we're just improving your security posture by handing that information off to them. Well, if you made it this far with me already, I really appreciate it. I won't be killing you with slides anymore. From here on out, it's all going to be hands-on, and I'll be showing you exactly what we're offering from a visual perspective. So here is our login screen. It gives you some contextual information of what's going on, what we're offering. It gives you some links to go to do some more of your research. So I'm just going to log in. We'll get started. Feel free to pause and rewind the video if needed. I'll be covering a lot of information in a short period of time here. So right away, as soon as you log in, you get some information on how to start using ActiveTrust Cloud, DNS Firewall, and ActiveTrust Cloud itself. We're going to start with our dashboards here. These are just like the GUI and kind of gives you a visual of what's going on in your network. Total DNS requests, and you're able to adjust these graphic user interfaces however you like. There's some buttons here you can click on and test it out. Things to note, you can delete these widgets at any time and add them back whenever you want, and you can customize them that way. Another thing to take note of is, this is pretty common, but you can adjust the time from hours, minutes, 12 48 hours here, and you can have a refresh time. You can set that, or you can refresh it right here and now whenever you want. Next thing I want to show you is our threat lookup. Let's say you found something that looks suspicious and you don't know what it is or how it got there. You can put it in here, and it's going to give you some information on it. You might notice that there are some loading times. I am recording this, however, I want to do it in as close to real time as possible, so you get an idea and feel for the ActiveTrust Cloud portal. Now that we have it loaded, we can click on these. We see there's 3 different fields associated with it, and you can look at what it is, narrative, where it came from, the threat class to it. We'll show you where to find out what the threat class is and some context on that. In fact, to look up for more information, we're going to go to our dossier here. Again, our dossier is the solution we offer with our package. You can go back to the slides and review on that if need be. But here we can see we have 2 different search fields. You can find that in the upper right in the tab here. But we're going to go ahead and search for something. The same threat that we searched for earlier. We're going to get some information from our partners. We can get the Alexa data. Obviously, that's not a top 10,000 or 100,000 search field, so it's not going to be there. But anything that has information on it, we're going to be able to see that immediately. Without going to who is and searching it one by one. We can see it all immediately, all at once right here. And you can add and remove fields if you don't want to see them. Now, let's say you want to know more information about one of these fields. We're going to go down here and let's see. We'll click this. We'll see what it's about. Let's see where this IP leads us. And if we look at it and we go to our geolocator here, you can actually see where this is located at. Let's actually look where this is coming from. Maybe this will give us more insight what's going on. And you can do this with all these fields. You can search it up, get more, you can dig into it deeper and deeper, and really find out who it is and what's going on. Next, let's go back and look at that same threat, but in our indicator search. And what this is going to tell us is when this threat was added, who added it, and possibly why as well. Yep, and as we can see, we got the date when it was detected, expiration date for when this will no longer be here, and who added it, and the property as to why it was added in here. Since we've been going down our data management tab, let's continue with that. And we'll actually see our reports here, and this will tell you what reports have been submitted in the last X amount of days, and you can customize that for searching. It shows you here what to look for and what you can search for. Next is our governance, and these are policies set up for who can view the data that you submit. You can edit any policies that you have set up already, or you can add a new one from the same tab. So next is our data submission. Again, I was saying how the policies determine your submission and who can view it, and the policy behind that. Simply drag the file of the submission you want to put in, or you can select the file and select the policy for that data, who can see the policies around that data. So now we'll go down our resources. This is a kind of like a white paper article that allows you to see what different threats are and context around them. You'll see that if you were to click some of these links that are attached to it, you're actually given more documentation on what it is. It's just really useful resources. Next, down our resources again, the default time to live gives you the default time to live for the different threat classes. Next, you're going to see me skipping some information here, and that's because they're just articles for you to read on your own. They just walk you through the dossier portal and give you some more context of what's going on. So with the skipping information, I do still want to show you things like the APIs, how to use them, and how to get started with them, because they're useful. You'll see you need an API key to test it. Remember, this is for testing. Using, you'll also need the API key. Go to your user settings here, and go to your manage all API keys. And here you can just create a new API key if you don't have one already, or you can delete it and create new ones if you feel like they're compromised or you just need a new API key for whatever reason.
you'll notice when I go back, it's kind of grayed out, and that's just because I can't enter an API key here. But for resources such as here, we can't enter an API key. Just hit enter. And you start using these and see what the information that comes out. For example, I'm going to show you a batch call here. We're just going to do a get. And it's simple as hitting try it out, and we'll actually see a result here. Although there's no information, it's still easy to use, and you can see how useful it could be just to test it out before you implement it in your own production. For everyone smart out there who are getting some funny ideas, I did delete all the API keys that you see in this video. So you'll see a few more API keys as we go through. They've all been replaced and renewed, so don't get any funny ideas on using them. Also to note, this is where you can change your password if need be. It might be useful or come in handy at some time. Heading back to the CSP portal, which is for the ActiveTrust Cloud, you'll see that we have a new dossier. There's not much difference between the new dossier and the old dossier, besides maybe the graphic user interface, the touch and feel of it. It's all pretty much here. You even have the resources from the old dossier still attached to this. Now that we're done with the dossier, we'll look at some of the graphics that ActiveTrust gives you to visualize the data on your network and what's happening, any threats. And you'll notice there's able to search based off certain networks. That's strange. I should probably show you that and how that's set up and how to set it all up before I actually show you the graphics. Here you can see the networks, and you can add a new network quite simply. Enter the network name, maybe a description of what it is, give IPs or a range of that network, and you start managing it right away. So next we have ActiveTrust endpoints, and endpoints are one of two ways that users can connect to ActiveTrust Cloud remotely. These are people who might be on your network occasionally or may never be on your network, and they need to connect to the ActiveTrust Cloud to be protected. You have a few options here once you assign a client and create or add an endpoint onto your client. You can disable the client here. You can see who's disabled, who's active, who's inactive, and see what's going on. Next are endpoint groups, and these allow you to create policies for those endpoints, right? You don't want them to see certain material online, or you want to block them at certain sources. You need to put them into a group. And at that point, you'll be able to create a policy for that group. If they're not in an endpoint group, they'll fall under the policy for all other endpoints, and you can decide the default policy for all endpoints that aren't in a group. Here I'm just going back, and I want to show you one more time the easiness is to search for different people through the active and inactive disabled search function here, and it can be pretty useful, especially when you get enough clients. It might be needed to know, who's inactive or who's disabled, and you need to start activating them. This is a good way to search for it. Next is the DNS forwarding proxy, and this is the second way that remote users can connect to the ActiveTrust Cloud and be protected. This is also the way that our Infoblox DDI solution connects. It's actually a DNS forwarding proxy that's on top of the Infoblox appliance that forwards DNS queries to the ActiveTrust Cloud. And with these DNS forwarding proxies and endpoint groups, you can create security policies around them. And you got several different options. You can create the policy name. Obviously, you need to make a name for the policy. But then you can say the network scope. You can get out the network, or you can get out the DNS forwarder, or the endpoint group, right, that I showed earlier. And then you can create custom rules around each one of these. So for the actual custom lists themselves for these policies, we'll get to that in a minute in the next tab. However, for now, we'll look at the feeds and threat insight data that we collect or that you purchased with your Infoblox ActiveTrust Cloud. You can decide whether or not you want to actually allow these or block them, and maybe even log them. And you can decide the priority on these, and this is for resource usage and speed of use. You can also add category filters, and we'll show those in just a second too. For the custom list, this is where you can actually create custom fields and individual IPs that you don't want people accessing, or URLs or host names. Pretty useful for things we don't know about that you don't want them to go to. For example, you don't want them to go to Facebook. Or in other ways, you don't want them to look at drugs. Well, we actually have filters for that. And you can narrow it down to specifics like drugs. Maybe you don't want them to look at drugs. or alcohol, tobacco, or you don't have to do it individually. You can also select the whole thing, and you will be blocking everything. And of course, drugs isn't the only option. You have many more options. You can select them as you need them. Next is our redirect page. This is a customized redirect page, or maybe a URL that you want to send people to when they try to access a source that's not allowed. And again, this is where you would set the IP or domain to redirect people when they access material they're not allowed to. Finally, we have the bypass internal domains, and these are important to set so we don't accidentally start blocking one of your company's internal domains on accident, or maybe it's a domain that you don't want ever blocked regardless. We can put it here and won't start blocking it. Now we can actually go back to the GUIs here and actually see the user interfaces and graphs and charts and all the good stuff of visualizing what's going on in your network. Again, this is to organize based off networks. You got different options for organizing the data and visualizing it, so it's easy, human readable. You don't have to sift through hundreds of files. But there might be a time when you actually need to know exactly what's going on, and you can actually do that inside these graphs. For example, here for the security report, you can actually adjust this and look down, and you'll see all the reports, who made the request, stuff like that. You can do it based off of different time zones and narrow it down and get the records, the policies that it was triggered under. You can categorize it and search for it under different threat classes, properties. And then here under category reports, there's just more information for you to look at and visualize and to dive deeper into. And remember, I showed you dossier before. You can take all this information, put it into dossier, and see what's going on with these different queries and where they're headed to. Then we have the threat insight. Remember, this is the more sophisticated offering that we have on top of DNS Firewall, and this is going to protect your data from being lost by being exfiltrated by way of the DNS. And here we can see when I click here that we have reports actually populating, and we can see there's a lot of DGA going on, and it protects you from DGA, fast flux, and all the other exfiltration methods. So a lot of this information is being blocked by these feeds. Here you can see we have our base case. We also have popular ones, DHS, AIS, IP, CERBL. These are really popular threat indicator feeds. If you need to know which feeds you're going to get with different subscription levels, let's say you're wanting to buy it, you can go to our help.csb.com or infoblox.com, and you can actually go to our section about the licensing and subscriptions, and it'll actually tell you what you're getting. It won't just tell you the subscriptions and what you get with them, but it'll also tell you how to deploy things like the ActiveTrust endpoints, the DNS forwarding proxies, so on and so forth. And it's a lot of useful information in there, and it goes over everything I'm talking about right now and more. So feel free to reference it. One thing you may need to reference the documentation for is the deployment of the ActiveTrust endpoint and the ActiveTrust DNS forwarding proxy. You can find them both here for download, but in order to deploy them, you may need to reference the documentation. Something that's important to take note of is our data connector, which allows you to push information from our on-premise device to the cloud. This also allows you to push information to third-party vendors, such as SIEMs. However, when you need to use threat insight with the data that's on your on-premise device, you'll need the data connector to connect that information up to the cloud so that it can start looking through that data and block questionable domains. Another thing that you might need to look up on the documentation is how to configure the DNS firewall configuration. If you want to see how to deploy it, there's a deployment guide attached to it. You can just look through this. It's in the second link, and you'll be able to go step by step and start using the DNS feeds that are in the cloud on your premise device. You'll also notice that there's some information on the side here. This tells you how many records your appliance can hold depending on the size of your appliance. Next, under portal users, you'll see that there's two types of roles that people can have when accessing the CSP portal. Those are user and admin user. Next, alerts will let you know if something's wrong, like an expired license or a license that's about to expire. To check what licenses you have with ActiveTrust Cloud, you can check under administration license, and it'll tell you exactly what you have. Next, a very useful feature that has been added to the ActiveTrust Cloud is being able to log all these queries and bad domains that have been triggered to an S3 bucket on Amazon. It's a pretty simple setup just by typing in the URL of the S3 bucket, making sure on the S3 bucket side that you put in the key defined at the top here. Just simply hit export once it's all set up, and you should be good to go and start receiving all the logs from the ActiveTrust Cloud portal. But again, if you need help, there's always the help page on the help.csp.infoblox.com to walk you through step by step how to set up your S3 bucket. Now on Infoblox's side on the on-prem device, I want to show you two things on how to set up the ecosystem license and then also how to start sending queries to your ActiveTrust Cloud. First, for the ecosystem license, you want to go to Outbound Endpoints and ActiveTrust Cloud Client. Here you want to enable the features you want to start using, such as RBZ or Threat Insight events. Then under the Grid Manager, you want to go to your members. And then over on the side, you're going to have an option for grid properties. Here at the bottom, you're going to find something called ActiveTrust Cloud Integration. You're just going to put in the credentials for your CSP portal, and that's going to allow your Infoblox ecosystem license to start pulling down events from the ActiveTrust Cloud. You can also test the connection to make sure that it's actually working with the credentials you've inserted. Here, to start sending DNS queries to the cloud, simply go to your DNS members and select a member you want to start sending DNS queries to the cloud with. When you select the edit properties for that member, you can go to forwarders. You'll have an option to start setting up the forwarder to the ActiveTrust Cloud. You'll need an access key, which you can find on the CSP portal. When you look under the DNS forwarding proxies, you'll have an option to click on the Infoblox appliance that you set up on the cloud, and you can use the API key there. What I'm showing you here is that you don't have the ability to inherit sending all DNS traffic to the cloud. You have to set up each member individually to send the DNS queries to the cloud. Well, thanks for sticking with me so far. I'm actually going to show you one last thing as a little special treat for the end. I'm going to show you how our Threat Insight works with our on-prem and cloud appliances. This is just going to be a simple script of DNS data exfiltration, and you're going to see here that there's no records stored. When I run the script, which is emulating DNS traffic, DNS data exfiltration, after a few more queries here, you'll see it'll start blocking it. Now after just 8 queries, Threat Insight has discovered that this is actually data exfiltration. And when we head over back to the Infoblox appliance and hit refresh, we'll see that the domain was added to the Analytics RPZ. Here I'm going to show you that you can actually create your own custom list of threat feeds that you don't want people to access certain websites, you want to block them, or you want to redirect them. You can do that here. Another thing is you can create your own custom feeds from the cloud and push them onto your on-premise device. So you're not limited to just the cloud, but you also can use everything that's up in the cloud, that DNS firewall, down here on the on-premise device. Well, thank you for your time again, for those who made it this far with me. If you have any concerns or questions or feedback, you can reach me or any of the other experts at Infoblox on the Infoblox community website. Well, thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day. Hope to hear from you soon.